Imagine walking through ancient stone corridors, the air thick with whispers of the past. What if those whispers belong to kings and queens, forever trapped by their tragic fates? Join us as we unlock the chilling secrets of Britain's most haunted castles, where royal sorrow still echoes through the hallowed halls centuries later. Each castle in Britain is a palimpsest of time, its walls rewritten by centuries of fire, betrayal, and grief. To walk through them is to touch the nerves of history still alive beneath the stone. Cold winds press through arrow slits, carrying the salt of coastal air and the weight of memory. You can almost hear footsteps that do not belong to the living. A train of mourning velvet dragging over flagstones, the faint ring of a key once turned in a cell door. Britain's royal story was written in fortresses long before it was crowned in palaces. Tower of London, Windsor, Edinburgh, Caernarfon, each was built to guard power and ended up imprisoning it. The same stones that once echoed triumphal processions now carry the soft sob of defeat. Blood seeps deeper than mortar. Even time cannot wash it out. Historians tell us that ghost stories are only legends, born from drafts and creaking wood. Yet these castles defy skepticism. Soldiers on night guard at the tower have seen figures kneeling where no shadow should fall. Tourists at Windsor speak of a cold scent of roses that appears only near the Queen's old private chapel. And in Scotland, beneath the battlements of Edinburgh Castle, bagpipes play a single unending note at dawn, a dirge for a boy who never returned from the tunnels below. But this is not a collection of ghost tales told for fright. It is a journey through the architecture of sorrow. Every haunting has its origin in a documented tragedy, an execution, a betrayal, a lonely death sealed behind walls built for protection. These are the places where power was most afraid of itself. When the crowns fell silent, the stone began to speak. As you follow these echoes tonight, remember, castles are not haunted because the dead refuse to leave. They are haunted because the living keep coming back to listen. Step softly. The walls have memories, and they remember more than history dares to admit. Every royal crown in Britain carries not just jewels, but debts. Debts of blood, betrayal, and silence. The castles that once sheltered monarchs became shrines to their undoing, each hall echoing a single question that history never answered. What price does power demand from those who wear it? The Tower of London answers with executions. For nearly 1,000 years, it stood as the empire's heartbeat and its guillotine. The ravens that circle the ramparts are said to carry the souls of the condemned, guarding the realm because they can never leave it. At night, warders walking the cobbled yards have seen a white figure gliding beneath Traitor's Gate. Anne Boleyn, they whisper, carrying her own severed head like a relic of devotion. The legend endures not because of horror, but because the stone still remembers the moment the sword fell. The air here feels charged, like breath held for centuries. To the north, in Edinburgh Castle, ghosts of monarchs and soldiers coexist like verses of the same lament. King James's court once filled its chambers with feasts and firelight, yet beneath those floors lie dungeons where rebels froze and princes wept. The story of the piper lost in the tunnels is more than folklore. It is an echo of a kingdom always listening for its missing sons. When the wind blows from the sea, his solitary note rises again, a sound too steady to be chance. Further west at Windsor, sorrow wears a crown. Here the rooms are immaculate, polished daily, yet servants whisper that Queen Elizabeth Thuffernay still walks the long gallery, her heels striking marble in perfect rhythm. They say her presence brings not fear but order. Even the clocks seem to keep truer time when she passes. Perhaps duty never dies, only the body that bore it. Each of these castles was meant to project dominion, yet their very endurance betrays the cost of permanence. Walls that defy centuries also trap centuries within them. The laughter of coronations, the screams of betrayal, the final breaths of prisoners, all are stored in the pores of the stone. Ghosts, after all, are only history refusing to be rewritten. They linger because we do. and the longer we stand in their halls, the more their stories become our own reflections. Proof that even glory casts a shadow. Among all Britain's haunted fortresses, none is more infamous than the Tower of London, a monument carved from stone and fear. Its walls have watched more royal deaths than any battlefield. It was meant to defend the crown, yet for centuries it devoured those who wore it. The tower began as a statement of power. William the Conqueror, as white fortress against a conquered city. But stone meant to impress always ends up imprisoning. Over time, it became the stage on which dynasties performed their slow collapses. Behind its thick walls, queens waited for dawn that never offered mercy. Princes vanished. Kings listened for footsteps that meant the end of their reigns and of their lives. The most famous of the tower's ghosts are its smallest. In 1483, the two sons of Edward IV were locked in the Bloody Tower by their uncle, Richard III. They were never seen alive again. Chroniclers claim they were smothered in their sleep, their small bodies buried beneath a stairway. Centuries later, workers repairing the structure found two child-sized skeletons hidden under a pile of rubble. They were placed in Westminster Abbey, yet their spirits never left the tower. Guards still hear light footsteps, the echo of innocence silenced too soon. And then there is Anne Boleyn, Henry VIII's queen, lover, and victim. She entered the tower as royalty and left it as legend. Witnesses say her ghost walks the chapel at night, her face serene, her head cradled in her hands. Others have seen her carriage drawn by headless horses racing across Tower Green when the moon is high. Skeptics dismiss it as myth. Believers note that even stone cannot forget the rhythm of a heartbeat cut short. Not all the tower's phantoms wear crowns. Some are soldiers who stood guard too long, some executioners who heard more prayers than any priest. One yeoman once reported a mist rising from the ground shaped like a man kneeling at the block. He swore he heard the whisper, "It is finished," before the fog dispersed. Perhaps it was imagination, but the tower has always rewarded belief more than doubt. Even the ravens, protectors of the realm, seem to know the secret. When storms gather over the Thames, they fly in restless circles, crying into the wind. Old superstition claims that if the ravens ever leave, the kingdom will fall. But perhaps they stay not out of loyalty, but captivity, like all the souls the tower has claimed. By day, the tower is a museum, its stones neatly labeled. By night, it resumes its purpose, a vault for unfinished confessions. The silence there is not empty, it hums. Stand too long in that hush and you'll understand why even the living whisper, as if afraid to wake the dead royalty still pacing their eternal corridor of power and regret. If the Tower of London is the kingdom's wound, then Windsor Castle is its scar. Beautiful, polished, but still tender beneath the surface. From a distance, Windsor glows with royal perfection, a vision of stone and order rising above the Thames. Yet the ghosts that linger here are quieter than those of the tower. They do not cry out for justice. They simply continue their duties, as if the crown itself never allowed them rest. Queen Elizabeth I has walked these corridors for 4 centuries. Servants and guards report the same pattern. The faint smell of lavender, the tap of high heels on marble, a rustle of skirts that stops precisely at the chapel door. She appears when turmoil grips the realm, during wars, abdications, even fires. Perhaps she returns to remind the living what endurance looks like. They say her figure moves with authority, not sorrow, a ghost of governance, not guilt. But Windsor has known tragedy deeper than superstition. During the reign of George III, its walls echoed with the sound of madness. The king, once proud and articulate, wandered the gardens, speaking to unseen listeners. Those who tended him said the air seemed to change around him, warm one moment, biting cold the next, as though the castle itself pitied its prisoner. When he finally died, the silence in his chambers was so complete that even the clocks hesitated to tick. It is said that on still nights, a single candle flares in his old room and burns without melting, its flame bending toward the floor, as if bowing to memory. Another spirit walks the long walk, a soldier in full uniform, face pale, musket at his side. The guards call him the Watchman of Windsor. He vanishes if approached, but those who see him report the same expression, calm vigilance. He is not lost, they say, merely stationed here forever. Windsor's ghosts are loyal. They do not frighten. They remind. Perhaps that is why the castle feels less haunted than inhabited. The past is still on duty. Visitors sometimes describe an inexplicable heaviness in the air, a reverence that demands silence. It is the weight of centuries behaving properly. When the current monarch dies, the flag at Windsor lowers, and the wind through the turrets carries a sound almost like a sigh. The stone absorbs it, filing it away with all the others, the sighs of queens widowed, kings broken, and servants who served long after life left them. Windsor stands as Britain's mirror, splendid in daylight, haunted in truth. Every window gleams, but behind the glass, history keeps its own vigil. High above the city, where the wind never sleeps, Edinburgh Castle rises like a crown carved from the bones of the earth. Built upon volcanic rock, its foundations are older than the kingdom itself. On bright days, it looks invincible, a citadel against time. But when fog swallows the hill, the fortress turns spectral, a silhouette trembling between worlds. Here, Scotland's kings were crowned and buried, often within the same walls. The castle has seen more sieges than coronations. Every invasion left a residue, gunpowder in the stone, fear in the corridors. It has held prisoners of war, traitors, and royals who stopped being royal the moment the throne turned against them. The wind that cuts across the battlements carries their names still, whispering through arrow slits and empty halls. Among all the castle's legends, one story endures, the tale of the lost piper. Centuries ago, tunnels were discovered beneath the fortress, leading toward the old city. To test their length, a young soldier was sent down with his bagpipes, instructed to play as he walked, so those above could follow his path. The music echoed beneath the streets, until, halfway to the Royal Mile, it stopped. Search parties found nothing, only silence. The tunnels were sealed. Yet to this day, at dawn, a single note is said to rise from below. Thin, mournful, unfinished. Locals call it the sound of loyalty without reward. Royal tragedies cling to Edinburgh like mist. Mary, Queen of Scots, gave birth here to the son who would one day unite two kingdoms. Yet her laughter once filled these halls before betrayal emptied them. When she fled into exile, the servants claimed they still heard her voice in the nursery long after she was gone, singing lullabies that ended in weeping. Some visitors swear they've heard it too, though the wind in this city has a gift for mimicry. The garrison guards still salute invisible superiors. Tourists take photographs, unaware that they're framed by centuries of grief. When night falls and the castle lights extinguish, the courtyard seems to breathe. The stone grows damp, the air colder, as if the fortress reclaims its dead. Every nation builds its myths from mourning, and Edinburgh Castle is Scotland's open wound, beautiful, enduring, unwilling to heal. The ghosts here do not frighten, they belong. They are reminders that even victory leaves shadows, and that loyalty, like music, can disappear in the middle of a song, yet never truly end. In the silence between the notes, the crown still trembles. Beyond London's Tower and Edinburgh's Rock lies another kingdom, one built not by monarchs, but by memory. Across Britain, hundreds of castles stand in half ruin, their walls split like open books, their stories whispered only to those patient enough to listen. Time has abandoned them, yet it has also set them free. Without tourists or titles, their ghosts speak plainly. In the north, Alnwick Castle sits like a sentinel overlooking endless moors. Here in the 17th century, a young nobleman returned from plague-stricken London, fever burning through his veins. The servants sealed him in his chamber, praying the sickness would spare the house. By dawn he was dead, but by evening, the guards swore they saw his figure pacing the ramparts, as if still searching for a horizon he'd never reach. Even now, when fog drifts from the North Sea, lights appear along the battlements. Footsteps of a man who refused to rest, a prince of confinement. To the west lies Caernarfon, Wales's fortress of empire, where Edward the Fern once proclaimed his son the first Prince of Wales. The stones there glow red at sunset, a reflection of both glory and guilt. Locals tell of a woman seen on the parapets, a nursemaid who leapt into the river clutching an infant when invaders stormed the gates. On certain nights, the water itself seems to cry. Archaeologists call it coincidence. The villagers call it remembrance. Farther south, at Berry Pomeroy in Devon, the ruin stands wrapped in ivy, a skeleton of grandeur. Travelers have long reported the Blue Lady who wanders the stairwell, said to be the spirit of a noble woman imprisoned by her jealous sister. She calls softly to visitors, asking for release, though no one knows from what. Her story is not written in any record, yet every stone bears her name in the hush that follows sunset. These forgotten castles share a single truth: that history's silence is never empty. The wind through their corridors carries fragments of royal decrees, children's laughter, the scrape of armor dragged from forgotten wars. Step inside one, and you feel the shift immediately. Air heavier, colors muted, as though the present dims out of respect. Time, they say, heals. But in these places, time listens instead. The ghosts are not angry. They are archivists. They preserve the things books cannot: the chill of ambition, the warmth of loyalty, the echo of love punished by politics. Britain's castles endure, not because they resist decay, but because decay itself has become their crown. And if you ever walk their ruins at twilight, listen closely. Between the calls of birds and the sigh of wind, you may hear the faintest murmur, not a curse, but a conversation, between the living and the legacy they will one day leave behind. Night falls differently over Britain's castles. It doesn't descend, it seeps, creeping through keyholes and arrow slits, filling the corridors where centuries once walked. As darkness thickens, every wall begins to hum. It is not wind nor imagination, but history turning in its sleep. This island is a kingdom of echoes. Every royal sorrow, every oath, every betrayal still vibrates beneath its stones. From the Tower of London to the cliffs of Caernarfon, these fortresses stand like chapters of a single unfinished story. Their ghosts are not bound by chains, they are bound by memory. Anne Boleyn, still kneeling in eternal grace. The piper beneath Edinburgh, forever playing the note he never completed. The Blue Lady of Devon, calling softly into the ivy. And beyond them, all the nameless servants, soldiers and courtiers who built kingdoms they could never claim. They are the true architects of empire, the invisible majority who still keep watch. Perhaps that is why the British landscape feels sacred even in ruin. Every castle teaches the same lesson: that power is temporary, but grief endures. Kings rise, crowns glitter, empires swell, and yet the dust of a crumbling battlement outlasts them all. Mortar and bone share the same color under moonlight. Time, impartial and patient, writes every name in stone only to wear it smooth again. Ghost stories, then, are not superstition. They are history's second heartbeat, the proof that something once mattered deeply enough to leave a sound behind. When a candle flickers for no reason, when a door closes without touch, when a cold draft slides through a chapel window, it is not menace. It is memory reminding us that reverence and fear are twins. Walk any castle after midnight and listen. You may hear footsteps where none should be, or a faint whisper of silk brushing past. Do not run. The dead here are courteous. They have spent lifetimes rehearsing their sorrow. They do not seek to frighten, but to be acknowledged, just once more, before time finishes its work. Britain's ghostly castles are not haunted because the past refuses to die. They are haunted because we refuse to stop listening. We come to them with cameras and curiosity, and they answer with silence shaped like grief. And in that silence, they remind us who we are. Heirs not only to thrones, but to the tragedies that built them. If this story followed you into the dark tonight, let it stay. Leave a thought for the voices still walking the corridors of stone. And when you're ready, step deeper into the labyrinth of forgotten truths. Because some echoes never fade, and some truths deserve to be remembered, no matter how much they hurt.